Wednesday, October 24th. Sportsbit, betting insight today, SBR picks Pauly and Teddy. I'm at Real Sportsbit on Twitter. He's at Teddy_covers. A week away from Halloween. I know Teddy will be in full costume a week from this morning. All the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. Plenty to go through. Big game breakdown. Game 2 of the World Series. Dodgers season on the line. I'll explain why. Also, if they can keep the Red Sox off the scoreboard first. And a lot of football games to get to. Look at this sheet. Look at this. Huh? We got 5 games in college Thursday and Friday. We got an NFL game Thursday. Bad numbers, Gase on Thursday night. All that coming up. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Some bad bets. Sixers, 2, down to 1, down to pick, back up to 1. And the under, 219 down to 214.5. No Simmons. They led for most of the game. They lose in overtime. Blake Griffin was Superman. 50, 14, and 6. Pistons win in overtime, 133 to 132. Embiid was fantastic as well. Back-to-back 30 and 10 games. Drummond got tossed. But Griffin, who's bringing a ball up the floor, knocking down threes. Guys doing it all for the Pistons, who are 3-0.
Sure, and the Pistons are an interesting team to talk about because in the Eastern Conference, they've gotten very, very little hype. And I know that Embiid came out of the game last night saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm in Drummond's head." But when you got Blake and Drummond up front and the backcourt mates, with Reggie Jackson and Ish Smith, that's not a bad duo. Dwayne Casey, a great regular season coach. Pistons have been moneymakers so far. Surprised to see the money come against them last night with Simmons' injury. Obviously, that money was on the wrong side. And when the game went into overtime, didn't matter if it went in overtime. Was still the flying over the total side and total. Bettors got this one wrong.
Yeah, the 3-0 ATS and 3-0 to the over as well. Troy, South Alabama under 54.5 down to 52.5. That was 38-17. Bad for the books. A big move on the Red Sox. Got as high as 177 here in Vegas. 35 cent move. They win game 1, cover the run line. 8-4, play the day winner with the over. They score first again and win. That's now 8-0 in the playoffs when they score first. This is a freight train, Teddy. There's not an easy out in that lineup.
No, we'll talk more about the Red Sox. We used the over as the play of the day yesterday. We're not going to use the over as the play of the day today. Stay tuned for play of the day at the end of the show.
Nuggets finally played an over, but they're 4-0 ATS and 4-0 straight up. 227 up to 229.5. Beat the Kings 126 to 112. Couple of hockey. Panthers Rangers over 6 up to 6.5. Another over for the Panthers. 5-2 final. Bruins 145 up to 160. One at Ottawa 4-1.
Yeah, and certainly the Kings Nuggets over got my money last night. I was riding that Denver under train. That was basically a wrong side. The markets had it right. And what I say, Pauly, don't fade the early season totals moves. What I do last night, I faded an early season total move. What happened? I lost. My clients lost. Not the right side. These early season total moves in the NBA are spot on. Unfortunately, I got on the wrong side of one against one last night with the Nuggets cashing their first over bet of the young season and also cashing their 4th consecutive point spread cover.
I thought Sacramento would dictate tempo in that one, and the Nuggets would be happy to run with them, and that's what happened. Thursday night NFL. Texans at home, 7.5, 44 the total against the Dolphins. Adam Gase has been involved in 2 Thursday night games. Last year, they lost 40-0 at Baltimore. His rookie year as a coach, they lost 22-7 at Cincinnati. It's been ugly so far with Gase, and now Wilson out, Stills out, Amendola banged up. All these guys got hurt Sunday, short week, on the road. Parker's agent called Gase incompetent. He's got to play him now, even though he was a healthy scratch Sunday, because they don't have any bodies left. That should be interesting as well. Miami comes in, Osweiler at the quarterback. Maybe O'Brien gets an edge there, but give full marks to the Texans, who are 0-3. They're now in first place.
Sure. That being said, the Texans haven't been winning by margin. 3 of their 4 victories, not enough to cover this number of 7.5. And the 4th win last week against Jacksonville, well, let's just say it wasn't the Jags' A game when Blake Bortles got benched. But when you talk about QBs with issues, obviously, Brock Osweiler has to go into that group. And I know Osweiler's been good, 600 passing yards, 5 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. He did throw a couple of picks the first week, but Brock Osweiler has played as well or better than expected through his first 2 starts this season. But he's also facing a coaching staff that knows him, knows his flaws, knows his weaknesses, And as you mentioned, he'll be missing two of the best playmakers that Miami has in Wilson and Stills. So, O'Brien's saying the right things about facing his former QB. Playing really well right now. I think he's thrown for 600-plus yards the last two games. He has a great history with Adam Gase. They're doing a great job with him. Brock's a very talented player. He's having a really good year right now for them, et cetera, et cetera. So O'Brien trying to blow smoke up his ass to get Osweiler perhaps a little bit confident going up against a devastating duo of Watt and Clowney, a duo that absolutely controlled the game last week in the win over Jacksonville.
Yeah, you got to worry about the health of Watkins, too. Had to take the bus to the game because of the collapsed lung or the lung issues, whatever you want to say it. That's something to be concerned about, I guess, moving forward. But it's been better. He was great against the Colts in that performance on the road as well. But I don't want any part of Miami here with Osweiler. They're all banged up. And I know the Eagles did it last week, but you just look at the stats again. Since they've went to this new system with the Thursday night games, the home teams have crushed it straight up in ATS.
Sure. And I'm with you in not wanting any part of Miami in this contest. Look at the quote from Adam Gase. With a banged up offensive line, mind you, quote, talk about Watt and Clowney. They're horrible to go up against. When you have both those guys on the edges, it makes it hard to do anything running or passing. And of course, Clowney last week, what do you have? 7 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, 2 tackles for loss, and a fumble recovery, in the win. O'Brien, quote, he's had some real good games for us. There's no doubt about that. He's very disruptive. He's an instinctive player. I thought he played loose and free. You're playing loose and free against Brock Osweiler. You can expect Osweiler to make mistakes. Unfortunately, though, this point spread, it's 7.5. That hook bothers me in this game. I know it's Houston or nothing, but the Texans just aren't the type of team that I'm comfortable asking to win by more than a touchdown. Just not how they're built and how they're playing right now.
Yeah. All right. I was looking at the wrong thing, by the way. Detroit's 2-1 to the over. Portland. It's Portland. That's 3-0 to the over. All right. 5 games tomorrow. They're all on television. Same thing Friday. Incredible. Can't get enough of college football. If it's on TV, let's bet it. Let's watch it. All right. Virginia Tech is laying 3 at home on ESPN, 4:30 Pacific against Georgia Tech. Open 3.5, 58.5 the total. I don't know what you do with Virginia Tech. They had the surprise win at Duke, routed at home by Notre Dame, lost to Old Dominion, couldn't stop anything. And now Georgia Tech kind of turned their season around once they simplified the offense. They're only running like 5 plays. That's from Paul Johnson. But that Thursday, was it Thursday or Friday night game when they had all those rushing yards and ran out Louisville? Maybe they've turned things around here. They say it's a tough place to play, but as you pointed out, those night games, it's not been it's not been you can't go in there and win when they got the Enter Sandman going crazy as well. I'm surprised the line's so short. What say you?
Well, I mean, there's still a fair bit of respect for Georgia Tech in the marketplace. And, the game against Duke where they had back-to-back fumbles and all of a sudden 21 quick points for Duke in the second half of that contest. Johnson's had extra time to prepare, and it's a Georgia Tech team. Look, there are weaknesses on this Georgia Tech team. They ranked number 123 in the country in opposing third down conversions. They're not getting off the field on third down on defense. But Georgia Tech has won 3 out of 4 in this series. They did beat Virginia Tech last year, and the way they did it was all about the big plays. And they spent all year last year. You talk about not many plays that they run, but last year it was like a triple option play with the A-back running against the grain and taking advantage of a defense that's aggressively following the motion. And boom, they had multiple big plays. Nathan Cottrell, the A-back for the Yellow Jackets, had a huge game last year. A 69-yard run on that particular play and multiple big play touchdowns. The Yellow Jackets aren't going to move up and down the field, grinding out 3-4 yards at a time and get these 80-yard drives against Bud Foster defense. That's not what they're designed to do. What Georgia Tech wants to do in this game is do what they did last year, break a couple of big plays and allow your defense to win the game. If the Yellow Jackets can do that and get a couple of big strike touchdowns, that'll go a long way towards pulling the upset and or covering the number as underdogs.
Like they're begging you to bet Virginia Tech, who also needed that long touchdown drive by Willis to beat North Carolina, and that was ugly. Carolina blew that game when they fumbled inside the 5-yard line. Friday night, 4 o'clock Pacific, ESPN. Miami hits the road to take on Boston College. Miami is 3.5, and 50 the total. Two big stories here. And it was a great story last year, but Miami's a total fraud. You get them outside on the road, they're a joke. You saw what happened on the neutral against LSU. You saw what happened against Clemson in the ACC title game. They lost at Pitt. This year, the LSU losses I mentioned, got 3 turnovers and held Virginia to 90 yards passing and still lost the game. So what does that mean? Another quarterback change. It's back to Rozier as he's in there. And watch out because Dillon is back for Boston College, one of 5 running backs in college football, averaging 5 yards a carry.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole team is averaging 5 yards per carry. They got 5 different backs on the team that are averaging 5 yards per carry. Dillon's been an absolute monster.
Holy shit. That's unbelievable. Yeah. I read that wrong. Okay.
Well, it's just saying that it's not just Dillon. The strength of Boston College is that offensive line, And I mean, Dillon, we're talking about he's 245 pounds. He has 652 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground already this season. And then again, behind him, David Bailey's 245. And then against, you have another guy. What's the guy? Ben, what the heck's his last name? Ben Glines, who plays both running back and wide receiver. He's got 5.6 yards a carry. And Miami defensively this season has been rock solid against the run. They're only giving up 105 rushing yards per game. They've only given up 5 rushing yards all season. That's the matchup here. Can Miami's defensive front contain A.J. Dillon and that BC running game? Obviously, it's an offense that Miami is going to have to be strong with their front 7 to be able to control the contest.
I don't have an opinion. What do you think?
Boy, I don't know. I mean, the money's been pouring in on Miami in this ballgame, and a lot of pressure on Manny Diaz this week. He showed him a bunch of film on Dillon and saying some of his eye-popping runs and all of that throughout his career. Miami's coming tested and rested. And with Rozier back at QB, I don't know if that's a positive sign. It is the senior, but the fact that they can bring in Perry if Rozier struggles and they can do a little QB shuffle might work in Miami's favor. I don't trust BC if they fall behind, so I guess I look to the Canes here, but not a strong opinion, not a game that is at this moment I plan on having any action on. The money's already poured in on Miami. The -2s, -2.5s, they're all gone right now, and most books sitting at 3.5 now, which means if I liked Miami before I didn't get my bet down, I probably sit this one on the sidelines, at least till kickoff.
I do like a couple totals. Thursday night, Baylor, West Virginia over 4 o'clock. Fox Sports 166 sitting around there. That total. West Virginia off the bye. And then Utah and UCLA on ESPN, 7:30 Pacific Friday night. Utah has figured this out offensively. Boy, this has been fantastic. Went up and down the field against USC, went up and down the field against Stanford. So they now could win the Pac-12. Have to win out, maybe get some help. They went out, they're in because they beat USC. But you still got Oregon coming up, and now UCLA's won 2 in a row, and they moved the ball the last couple of weeks as well. I think that's an over 55. It took long enough, but last 3 weeks, remember they lost that game 28-24 at Washington State. They got beat on a 90-yard touchdown late in the game. Utah's playing well.
Utah's playing really well, and when you look at the full season stats for the Utes, that's where you're going to get in trouble. And remember, the markets are always going to react on the bigger sample sizes. They're going to look at Utah's season-long numbers, say, well, the offense isn't. Right now, Utah's offense is a heck of a lot better than it was in September. Bettors need to be aware, both side and total, that Utah's full season numbers might be lying just a little bit, certainly misleading when it comes to how the Utes are doing on the offensive side of the football right now.
Game 2 of the World Series tonight. Boston leads 1-0. It's going to be colder tonight than it was in Game 1. Price against Ryu. Red Sox $1.40, 8.5 the total. Should be high scoring again because Ryu had an ERA of 8 and change on the road in the NLCS. I don't understand this move. It should have been Hill, who was better on the road than he was at home, and Ryu in Game 3, who was better at home than he was on the road. I think it's backwards for Roberts, and he made a couple bad decisions in Game 1. In any event, Price finally gets the monkey off the back, gets the win as a starter. Now 1-9 in postseason games when he starts. He says, quote, I guess lighter is a good word. Yesterday we had media day. I got to look forward to it for the first time in a long time. Today's definitely a weight lifted off of me for sure. Not like food tastes better or anything like that, but it was time. I'm definitely glad that the time came and moved past it. I look forward to doing the same thing coming up tomorrow. Pressure's off him now. Finally won a game, and they won game one. So it's no big deal if they get beat in this one. But I'll tell you this, if they win this one and go up 2-0 and the series shifts to LA, they're like 116 and whatever the record, there's like 116 and 46 on the season when you factor in the playoffs. You're going to beat this team 4 out of 5? Good luck.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, the Red Sox won 108 games this season. They were the best team in the regular season, and they've been the best team here in the postseason. I want to go back to Ryu for a minute and those home road splits because, as you mentioned, it's not just in the postseason. The regular season, the numbers were clearly better at Dodger Stadium. His quote, through an interpreter, quote, "Obviously, it's the stadium that I pitched in the most. Therefore, I feel pretty comfortable pitching in Dodger Stadium. Having that run of success definitely builds more confidence. I guess that's the reason why," which isn't, "Oh, I figured it out. I'm going to pitch really well at Fenway tonight." Saying, "All right, well, I'm more comfortable pitching at home." And, when I was in Korea, I only saw Fenway Park through TV. It took me so long to actually get here at Fenway Park. My initial reaction to the Green Monster is it's very tall. I think Ryu's up against it, and I agree 100% with your assessment about Price getting off the schneid matters, after you lose 9, you're 0-9 in your postseason career. The way that he did it with a dominant showing matters. He's fared well in previous starts against the Dodgers, 2.25 ERA against them. And you talk about this lineup, here's Alex Cora, what they did last night. From the first at bat, we put pressure on them, and that's what we do. Red Sox are hitting better than the Dodgers right now, and that may be all that matters for the rest of this World Series.
Lineup's too good. Benintendi with 4 hits. He was 25-1 to win the MVP at some shops. The last 10 teams that have led 2-0 in the World Series have won. It's 80% all time, so the Dodgers up against it. But there's no let up. Even Leon got a hit. You saw Nunez go deep. I don't think that was a bad decision taking Baez out. I don't think you can trust Wood, who continues to give up home runs. That was questionable. The other thing, too, can Kershaw catch a break? I mean, Jesus. Like he said after the game, he didn't pitch well. But it's game 1 of the World Series. You drop a pop-up to start the game, and Betts comes around to score, and then for the 90th time, Puig can't hit the cutoff man? He never hits the cutoff man. And there was no play at the plate to be made. He wants to show off his arm, and so they move up to second on that. He comes around to score. And then again, the inherited runners. He has horrible luck in his postseason career where he comes out with 2 on, and Madsen gives up 2 more runs and 2 more hits as well, which go back and look that up. His record stinks in terms of when he leaves the game with guys on base. The relievers can never get out of the inning.
Sure, and that's good news for us because in theory, that should provide value on Kershaw starts somewhere down the line because we know that he's had bad luck and that things just haven't broke right for him. But I don't know if that's going to be in this series. It's certainly not going to be tonight. Manny Machado, talking about the Dodgers after yesterday's loss. And this is a quote. Frankly, I didn't like it. Quote, "We got to keep fighting, keep doing what they're doing." Nunez came up there, got a clutch hit. You got to tip your cap off. I think Alex Wood threw a good pitch there, but he just made a better swing. Just come back tomorrow, keep fighting, keep doing what we're doing. What you're doing is losing game 1 of the World Series. You don't want to keep doing what you're doing. You want to hit the ball a little bit better and pitch a little bit better. I don't know if they get the job done in either of those regards tonight.
I like the rested team, too. They were sitting home. They took all of September off, essentially. They had everything wrapped up. They take out the Yankees in 4. They take out the Astros in 5. They wait around. Dodgers had the game 163. They had to go 7 games on the road in the NLCS. Then the short turnaround and back on the road for the World Series. I think that's a big deal. All right, take it away. Play of the day.
Sure, play of the day. And we've seen the money go up, and now we've seen it come back down. Right now, the Red Sox minus 140. That's our play of the day. Betting number 904. Take Boston to go up 2-0. Minus 140. Look for the Red Sox to take control of this series against the LA Dodgers. Dodgers lost it last year. Looks like, well, very early, but Red Sox minus 140. That's the play of the day.
All right, a lot to recap tomorrow. We'll preview the college games, Georgia and Florida, huge game for the SEC East national title picture and also Georgia's win total. How does Washington State bounce back after they tear down a goalpost win against Oregon there at Stanford? Stanford, a short home favorite. We'll hit all those big games coming up tomorrow All the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. SBR Picks, Pauly and Teddy. Low Shack in the Bay coming up next.